I'm joined by University of Central Oklahoma defensive backs coach Adam McGuire. Coach, thank you for taking time to talk to me this evening. Could you start by telling the listeners and viewers a little bit about yourself?
Yes. So, obviously, first and foremost, thanks for having me on. So, I was born in Baytown, Texas. That's southeast of Houston, and so I do claim to be a Houstonian. Because the reality is, anybody that doesn't know the Houston area doesn't know where Baytown is. So, I just claim Houston. Born and raised there. Went to play college ball at Texas Lutheran University. Was a 4-year letter there. Traveled all 4 years. Was on all 4 special teams for all 4 years. My last 2 years was a starter. All-conference player, won 2 conference championships, went to the playoffs for the first time in school history. And so that's kind of my playing career. I actually went the corporate route when I first got out of college. Tried to give that a shot. I was actually thinking about going into coaching, and I had some people talk to me about coaching, but then somebody offered me a job that was guaranteed. And so I went ahead and signed that paper and moved on and got that check. I ended up going into coaching 2 years later. Started at Trinity University, was there 3 years, went to TCU for another 2. And then now here I am in Edmond, Oklahoma.
Now, you mentioned you were a 4-year letterman. Not everybody can say that. So, when you kind of look back on that aspect of it, what does that mean to you to kind of to know you were a 4-year guy?
To me, it was important. One, because as a young man that was on his own for the first time in a new environment. I came from the big city and now I'm in small town Seguin, Texas. It was something to keep me focused on what I was really there for, and that was to get a degree. I enjoyed playing football. I loved playing football. Honestly, I only went to college because I had an opportunity to play football. But at the end of the day, I knew it was an opportunity to get a degree. So the fact that I was getting some playing time, it gave me something to continue to work for because it gave me that itch to get on the field more and so I did the special teams role for a couple years and then finally got my shot to be a primary defensive player, 2-year starter. And again, it just kept me engaged. And I mean, I got to play football, and that's really what it came down to, is I had an opportunity to go play football in practice. And it means something to me at practice and not just, about what the coach is selling about work hard and you'll get there one day. I was like, well, hell, I'm going to at least go on special teams this Saturday. So, I got something to really work for. I got to make sure I don't get embarrassed. So it was good.
And that's something that I feel like a lot of people don't don't really realize the importance of special teams. So just knowing that was your role for a while, what was that pride like that you took going into that special teams role?
Honestly, I took a lot of pride in it. So number one, the primary reason I started is because we ran a pro style punt, and I was the left wing, and there was nobody better than me at the left wing, and I never let anybody through at left wing. Even as a true freshman, they'd have older guys go up against me, and I was, hey man, my kick step was phenomenal. My inside hand with my outside, you know what I mean? Like I was just good at it, and so I took a lot of pride in it because then it became my position. It was just like this is going to be my position for 4 years. And then I started getting opportunities on punt return and then on kickoff. And, that was still before they were calling targeting calls. So I was ruthless on kickoff. Hey. But then punt return, I had an opportunity. I was one of those back row guys. I was never the returner, but I was that guy that if they were going to sky kick, I had a chance to go return the ball. And so it was also good for me because I got to feel a part of the team, which I felt a part of the team, but I'm saying I had an actual important role on the team. And I knew I had opportunities to continue to learn and grow and build the trust of the staff. And, again, I took pride in it because I knew I had a lot of buddies that were not going to play on Saturdays, that weren't even going to travel. And I knew I had a chance to, and I wanted to make sure that I went out and took advantage of my reps. And it helped that I had some buddies that kind of got the same opportunity. One of my really good friends from college, he's actually coaching the NFL now. Me and him, we were like the 2 freshmen that were on every special teams, and we would have competitions as to who was getting to the ball first, who was going to grade out the best. And so, again, I took a lot of pride in it, and it was really important to me. And again, it helped me knock off some of that, catching up to the speed of the game early on in my career.
Now, you mentioned that you probably would have had some targeting calls. So I have to ask, in a rough estimation, about how many games would you have been kicked out of for targeting in your career?
Oh, I've been kicked out more games than I played. But I mean, that was just how we were playing it at the time. It's not like, they made the rule and I said, forget it, I'm gonna do it anyways. They didn't put that rule in place till later on in my career. And honestly, that's how I was brought up to tackle. When I was a little kid, they said, hey, put your crown of your helmet into his face mask. And so, as bad as it is now, it was bred into me. So,
okay, so you go from special teamer, then you end up being a team captain. So, what did being a team captain mean to you?
And I'm not trying to be cliche, but it honestly meant the world to me. And I say that because even though I was getting playing time at a young age and I had athletic ability at a young age, I was very immature. I worked as hard as I felt like working. I didn't work hard all the time. You know what I mean? Like I thought things were owed to me. I wasn't always the best teammate. And looking back on it, I was the teammate I did not want by the time I was graduating. But I was also like, I still had so much in me. And I think that's, part of my coaching journey. Like, I know there's kids like me that maybe know better, but don't do better because they just need a little more guidance or never been shown better, but they still have it in them to be better. You know what I mean? And so for me to be voted a team captain, it was honestly an emotional moment for me because I knew where I started and to show that growth and for them to say, no, that's a guy we want to lead our team and be an example and be, the face of our team. It meant a lot to me because it also said a lot about how I've grown over those 4 years.
And looking back at that, like in what area or aspect do you kind of see the most growth in?
Honestly, I think it's just about my overall selflessness. I think I just thought a lot about just me. If I didn't want to do something, I wasn't going to do it. Like if someone upset me, I was going to make it very known. And I was very verbal about somebody upsetting me. And even at times on the field get overly physical because somebody upset me. And the coaches were just another guy on the field. Like I talked to them however I wanted to, if I got to a point where I was angry. And so I think it just took time for me to just step back and just reflect on who I want to be, how I wanted my life to be led. And a part of that was just, figuring out, my faith walk in college. That was a huge part of my journey in college. And I think that part, just learning about, the Bible and being selfless and what a true servant leader looks like. I think as I started to digest those things, it's made me really look at, okay, this is the complete opposite of how I'm leading my life. This is everything I say I want in life, but it's nothing like I'm leading in life. And so it was really after my sophomore year when I really just felt like I hit rock bottom that I just finally was just like, I'm just going to go and work and I'm going to be a good teammate and whatever happens, happens. Because I was not scheduled to be the starter going into my junior year. I was a solidified backup and I was going to be a special teams guy. And they told me that like, that's going to be your role. So just embrace it. And thankfully I had matured at this point and I was like, yes, sir. I'm going to be the best teammate I can be. I'm going to enjoy this time as a football player while I can. And I'm just going to be a good teammate and work hard and push others to work hard as well. And things just all of a sudden, it's just funny how it happens. Things just all of a sudden started lining up. Whenever I changed my attitude, whenever I started being a better teammate, whenever I started working hard, whenever I started putting the team first, everything started working out for me. Before you know it, I'm a starter, right? And so I had to stop looking at myself and everything I thought that I deserved without putting any work into it to deserve it. I just thought I deserved it because I thought I deserved it. And I just really started working and started buying into what they were telling us. And again, just changing my mindset and just everything just ended up working out for me.
And then in 2014, you all made your first ever playoff berth. Knowing you were a part of that historic moment, historic team, looking back, what does that also mean to you?
That was huge for us. Not only because it was just a historic mark, like obviously we knew it was historic, but as football players, as athletes, as competitors of any kind, you think you're going to win it all every year. Like you just go into it with that on your mind. So when I first got there, we were 5-5. That was my first year. And we had just got a new coaching staff like a year or two before I got there. And we were 5-5, but we were a bad 5-5 team. Like we could have just as easily been 3-7. Going into my sophomore year, we were 4-6, but we just as easily could have been 7-3. Like we went into an overtime game with a top-ranked team, double overtime with another top-ranked team. we were going toe-to-toe with some teams that were nationally ranked on offense. And so we knew it's like our record does not show the team that we are. And so, we just went freaking full throttle ahead, foot on the gas, just working. And so that next year we go 8-2, I believe it was. 8-1, 8-2. We had a game canceled because of weather. It's a non-conference game. And we didn't make the playoffs, and we were pissed. We were like, we worked really hard. We went toe-to-toe with everyone. You know what I mean? And we just felt like we deserved it. And then the next year, we go 9-1. And we make it to the playoffs for the first time ever. And it was, as much as we were excited about the playoff game, it was the journey that got to that point that we were most proud of. And I heard a coach say that one time. He was usually a coach or a player. They talk about, the rings, the championships, they're awesome. But they're only awesome because you reflect on the journey to get to that point. And I understood what he meant in that moment. I knew where we started with a bunch of knuckleheads. We were just a young team full of knuckleheads that just liked playing football. And by the end of it, we were an older, developed team that loved each other. You know what I mean? And so it's when we lost in that playoff game, we lost 28-21 in a late touchdown that they scored against us. We cried tears because we wanted more for each other because we know how far we came. But for that school, for our university, it was huge because Texas Lutheran, when they were still Texas Lutheran College, they won national championships when they were NAIA. You know what I mean? And then the team went away and they came back as Division III, I believe, in the 90s. And so, again, just to get to that point again, to see that it was capable because we were not considered a good program. People didn't think you could go win there. And for us to do it, it just showed that, again, the hard work, the buying in, the togetherness, all those things that seem cliche in the sports world, when you actually apply them and they're in action, then the results will still follow. And so, and we did have some good football players. So,
your playing career, it ends on a pretty high note, given what that hired, and then you mentioned you went into the corporate world. So then, how do we go from playing to then going to the corporate world?
So, I was thinking about going into coaching. I didn't know if that's the route I want to take, but I knew it was something that I was very interested in. But the flip side of that is I always thought of it as, if I don't do it, I could go back to it. So should I look into something else? And I was getting a business degree. So, of course, in my mind, I have to go apply my business degree because I just went to school for 4 years to get a business degree. I'm scheduled to graduate in May. So I should probably go use it. And so I was debating I didn't go student coach for the semester. I knew that I wanted to take a semester off. I didn't want to, not from school, but from football. I was like, I just need a refresher. I just need to get away from it for a little bit. But I was planning on possibly going to GA and a guy that I used to play with. So this talks about the same feelings I had when I was the voted team captain, the growth and maturity. A guy that I used to play with that honestly we didn't get along when I was younger. He came back to school and he told me like a year earlier, he was like, man, I really pay attention to your growth and how you matured. And, if you're interested in a year, I'm going to have a job for you. Literally a year on the dot, he came back. He's like, hey, you ready for that job? And I was like, what is it? Of course, I'm used to making no money. So the money he told me wasn't a lot, but also there's a lot more than I'm making. And he was like, I'm going to be honest with you. I already talked to my director and he trusts me and the job's yours if you want it. You're still going to interview, but the job's yours. And so I was like, yeah, I want the job. And so, and again, it was part of me just knowing my family dynamic and where I came from. I was like, I have a job at a huge company where I'm going to be making more than most of my family ever made in a year, possibly even 2 years. And I'm going to have a college degree. You know what I mean? And so I was just thinking about just all these different things outside of what I really want to do. But that part of that journey was important because I got to go the route and know that it's not what I want to do.
So at what point did you realize that for whatever reason, or even if you knew it deep down, but what was that kind of that breaking point where it's like, okay, I might want to not do this forever and get into coaching?
Well, I knew a few months in I didn't want to do that forever. Yeah, it was for the birds. So it's kind of funny. So, like I always say, sometimes life calls you to where you're supposed to be. And again, so like now, again, talking about how my faith was important to me or is important to me. Like now I know, you know, God, sometimes he plants these little seeds for what's to come. And when I was in high school, I was getting ready to graduate, and I told my DC at the time, I was like, hey, so if I want to be a coach, will you hire me? And he was like, yeah, I'll come hire you. And so I was like, okay, cool. So now I know I can be a coach if I want to. Like that was the thought process. Like, cool, I know I can come do coaching if I don't want to do anything else. Done, moved on from it. And so when I was in college, I started working at this sports ministry. It's called Stillwater Christian Ministries. They do Stillwater Sports Camp around Central Texas. And I would volunteer there. I started volunteering there. And I got to go help with like football camps or whatever, because obviously I played football. So like, hey, you help with football. So I would do that. And, you know, it was fun. It was cool. It was a bunch of little kids. Like you get to freaking hit them with bags. They think it's hilarious. Like lead them through drills, like throw the ball, see if they can catch it. But then I got to be like a coach of like a little 7-on-7 team out there. And this isn't one of those like how they do the summer 7-on-7 team. It was literally like there's like 40 some kids. Let's break them up into teams. You're the captain of that one. And so we did that, and I got to coach those guys and like run an offense with them and run a defense with them and coach them up. And when they say they can't do something, like getting them to, you know, believe in themselves and to go try to make a play. And, you know, I was coaching this kid on how to play quarterback, and it was like nothing like extreme. It was like very simple stuff that I was just like, anybody that knows football can coach this. And just seeing them have success and like be super appreciative. And it was just this euphoric feeling. And so it was kind of like another one of those times where I was just like, man, I've never felt anything like that other than playing. And so, you know, it was just this weird feeling. I was just like, man, that might be what I need to do. And then, so the head coach I ended up going to work for when I got out of college, or when I got done with corporate, he was recruiting me to come help coach since I was going into my senior year of college. So he had been recruiting me for like 2-3 years to come work for him. And I kept turning it down. And then finally I finally broke in. And I didn't even ask him if the job was still there. I just asked him, I was like, hey, if I'm interested in getting into coaching, what do you think I need to do? He's like, come by the office on Tuesday. We'll talk about it. I'm like, all right, cool. I go in there and I'm thinking, you know, again, I wasn't going to ask for the job because I turned him down like 4 times. And so I get in there. He's like, okay, so this is how much I can pay you. This is what I think you'll be doing, blah, blah, blah. And I'm just like, is he offering me a job right now? And it is like, obviously the interview had happened with us interviewing, like working with each other through camps and things like that. But I was like, damn, I'm a college coach. I didn't even interview. And so, but again, I think those things happen for a reason. You know, I knew that guy I still know him. He's a really good friend of mine and a mentor when I need him to be. But I knew him for 2-3 years before I ever started working for him. You know what I mean? And so it just worked out. Ended up where I was supposed to be.
And so what would you say was maybe the hardest part of the transition going from a player to a coach?
I think I had to be more strategic in how I got the same point across. You know, when you're a player, when you're a captain, honestly, you can say whatever and they're going to listen because you go through it with them. Like you're in the trenches with them every day. You know, you're in the workouts. You're having to get up at 5:30 every day with them. They see you run your hands on the line as well to go run that gasser. Like when you're doing it every day with them and you're put in a leadership position and you're displaying all the qualities that they say need to be, you know, displayed in the program, they'll listen to you because he's not just yelling to yell. He's not just getting on to me. Like he's leading by example. He's doing everything that we say we want to do. He's displaying that. But as a coach, you know, coaches sometimes yell just for the sake of yelling. Like that's just how some people communicate. Like, you know, it's like, why are you yelling? He's like, oh, he's just talking. Like he's not even yelling. That's just how he talks. And so you just have to figure out a different way. You have to figure out how you want to get the message across in a different way. And I was still young enough to where that was like a struggle. But the fact that I had done corporate for 2 years, I had already had to learn that skill because you go from team captain, there's 100 plus, males in here, and they'll respond a certain way to now you're in a corporate environment where there's not only males that maybe never play sports, but there's females. And so through that 2-year span, I had to learn how to communicate different to get things done, whether it be things that aren't getting done right or things that I think are getting done right. And so whenever I went into coaching, I had already had some of that training on how to communicate differently than a football player will. And so now I got to even add a little bit more aggression, a little more of that rah-rah to it at times. But again, I was speaking to them from a more corporate perspective or from a more corporate demeanor where, again, it was just a lot less aggressive and in your face. It was more about getting the message across as efficient as possible and let's move on. And so that was tough. That was probably the toughest part because, again, like where I went to work, my first job, I had friends on that team because Trinity University and toU are only about 40 minutes away. So I had buddies, like legit, I'd spent a lot of time with on the team. And so, honestly, that was outside the communication piece. That was probably one of the toughest parts because, like, I had to tell friends, like, hey, you can't be coming over to the house like you were before. Like, we can't be buddy out here. Like, I'm a coach here. And I mean, they understood, and I kind of made it known early. So that was probably harder than just the getting back into it part. It's like, hey, I know we're friends. I know you've been to my house multiple times, but it's all stops now for the next 2 years till you graduate.
And during your time there at Trinity, you were assistant DB coach, was receivers coach, was DB coach, special teams. So how did wearing all those hats, learning all those different types of positions and schemes and stuff, how has all that you think helped you so far grow as a coach?
Mm-hmm. So I was never a receivers coach, but whenever I would work summer camps with him, at that same camp that I was telling you about, I would work as a receivers coach also because we do like an offense defense session. I was both, but I never worked receivers officially. It took time to grow, and I think it was a very comfortable environment. And I don't mean that in a negative way. They were just all so willing to teach me because I showed early on that I really want to be a coach, that I was willing to go wherever for an opportunity to be a coach. And I want to be the best coach and teacher that I could be. My first year, I had a very limited role. It was very similar to a GA. I was doing a lot of breakdown, getting stuff done around the office, and I got to coach some, but I really didn't have a lot of coaching responsibility. I had to run all the scout teams and then special teams. You know, our head coach was a special teams coordinator, so he'd sit down with me and talk through, you know, what we're doing, why we're doing it, and talking about the different looks we need from the scout teams. And you know, it's different than when I was at TCU. We didn't have 5 people out there getting the scout team right. It's me running around like a chicken with his head cut off trying to get everybody right. And again, the perk of it is you learn to communicate. It's like, hey, drop 45 over your right shoulder, pivot at 30, get the 3. You know what I mean? So like you're yelling at people across the field and trying to give them in their assignment. And so that it's when I first started, it was a struggle because I'm like, I don't even know these kids' names. I'm trying to get attention. I'm like, 29. You turn around, come over here, then get 13. You know, and so there was a big learning curve as far as just figuring out how to get it all organized. Just organize the information in my head so that I could communicate it effectively. And so then, as the years go on, I was actually about to leave. There's an opening on staff. I asked if I could interview for it. He told me no. So then I told him, I said, all right, well, I'm interviewing. So I had flown to Montana. I was talking to somebody about a job in Washington. I was talking to a job somewhere else. And he realized, like, no, he's serious. Like, he's not doing this just because he wants to be around. He wants to go coach. So then he ended up moving some stuff around. He ended up hiring me full time as the DB's coach. And the guy who was the DB's coach is kind of like basically stepped back a little bit. He's kind of teetering out to retire, but wasn't full on retiring. So it was nice because then I got to go on the road recruiting. I got to be a lot more involved in, you know, the schematics part of it and learning from that perspective. And honestly, the guy that I was working for started teaching me how to be a coach. He'd get me on the board. He'd ask me questions. And it was, I mean, I made the mistake of wearing some gray slacks one day, and they were dark gray by the time it was over with because I was sweating. Man, he had me nervous because I'd be like, all right, so this guy, he said, nope, who's this guy? And I was like, him. He was like, him doesn't mean anything to a kid. And so he's making me go through like in-depth details of how to install, how to talk about the offense, how to talk about what we're trying to get accomplished, the communication. And he was like, I should be able to put my head down and you be able to teach this, and I still know what my job is. And I was like, all right. And so, I mean, and again, as the years go on, you just continue to sharpen those tools, and you learn and you learn and you learn. And ideally, I mean, if you're trying to be a good coach, you're always critiquing yourself. And so year one was fun because looking back on it, because it was just, I had no idea what I was doing. I just really wanted to get it right. And then seeing to year three when I left there, just knowing the growth that had happened in that time frame.
And then what led you to eventually move on to TCU?
Well, one, Trinity University was an awesome school. Still is an awesome school. Like, most of that staff is still there. I still keep in touch with everybody on that staff. San Antonio, Texas is a great place to live. It was, honestly, I could have easily never left. I think for me, I was still young enough and still so wet behind the ears that I wanted to see something different. I wanted to experience different things because I knew that we were always going to be simple on defense and just teach, effort and pursuit and leverage and things like that. And I just wanted to push myself outside of my comfort zone. And I think that was a big part of it, is I realized I'm really comfortable here and I could stay here forever. I need to go see different things. Because my goal one day is to be a head coach. And it's like, okay, if I only see one style and only deal with these same issues, how am I getting prepared for when my opportunity comes? Or am I even preparing myself for that opportunity? Because Trinity University is a very high academic school. I mean, they still camp every year with the Ivy Leagues and Rice University, and that they have those similar requirements to get in. So you deal with a lot less issues with kids that are getting recruited by the Ivy Leagues. And so, I'm the academic liaison here, and, we deal with more issues than we did at Trinity. We may be 3 or 4 kids that are struggling, whereas, most of the kids here didn't get recruited by Harvard. And so, sometimes there's a bigger learning curve. And so, again, I just wanted to push myself outside of my comfort zone and go see some different things and see how other people teach, see how other people, perceive information, how they get across information, different schemes. And so, again, I really just wanted to push myself out of my comfort zone and see some different things and meet new people.
And what was your experience like at TCU learning under Coach Patterson and his staff?
Well, one, I realized how much I do not know about the game of football working for Coach Patterson. And even going there, I was not naive enough to think that I was there. I never thought I had arrived and just knew everything. But getting in there's sometimes we'd be sitting in meetings, I was like, I have no idea what you're talking about. It was just completely over my head, which was a good thing because I went from incompetent to eager to learn, right? Because it's like, okay, I don't want him to keep saying this and me not know what it means, so I need to figure it out. And so, I mean, it was a crash course on how to master the art of football. I mean, it's things that I never worried about before, about, numbers in the run game with the secondary and leveraging the ball and things like things I just didn't think about at a deep level. And so, I mean, it was awesome. And he's, whether you like it or not, he's still old school. So we worked long hours and we grinded and we always had something to do. And we was always around the players and doing a lot. And so it may, again, talking about pushing myself outside my comfort zone, which is what I was trying to do, I did. And he showed me I have a lot more work capacity than I thought I did. That's for sure. But as far as the knowledge and the experience and the connections that I built from that, I mean, it's priceless. That time there has helped molded me to get to this point, and honestly, it probably impact my career as long as I keep going.
And then, how did we go from TCU to where you are now at UCO?
Well, TCU is a great place. Fort Worth was an awesome city so far. Edmond included. I've never worked in a bad city. But for those that don't know, we got fired at TCU. So, that I didn't really have a choice. But so Coach Lechtenberg, our DC, I've known him for, I'd say, 4 years now. So we met when I was still just getting into it. When he took the job at Incarnate Word, our DC at the time at Trinity told me to reach out to him because he used to coach at Musthaves College, which is a rival in our conference. And so, I reached out to him, just told him, welcome to the city, whatever I said. I don't know. I just introduced myself. He was familiar with us. He was very open to, connecting. And then it's just funny because, we would text every now and then, but not, we weren't like best buds or anything like that. We weren't talking all the time, but I would go work their camps because they were just right across the street. And so I worked at least 2-3 of their camps every summer. So I was always around. I've gone over there to clinic with their DB coach that was there at the time. Me and him both spoke at a clinic in the Houston area because that's where we recruited. And so we got to interact there. And we just always kept up with each other. And even when I went to TCU, we stayed in touch. And so when he got this job, it's funny. I have a cousin that was going to UCL at the time when I was at TCU. And whenever I came out for the OU and Oklahoma State game, my uncle picked me up when we got lunch because it was late games. And we went and watched. He actually showed me the campus because we were close. Because I don't remember where we stayed, but we stayed somewhere close enough to where he could bring me by. And I was just like, man, this is an awesome stadium. This is an awesome campus. Like, I was like, I'm not being funny. Like, I'd work here. Like, this is a great place. And this is when I was still at TCU. And so whenever Coach Doral got the job here, I actually reached out to a coach that I work with that knew him and was like, hey, if he doesn't have a DB coach he's bringing on, tell him I'd be very interested. So, like, I was already trying to get here with Coach Doral. And then Coach Lechtenberg, I thought was going somewhere else. And he called me one day. I was like, oh, man, I was Lech. I called, answered the phone. And he told me he just took the DC job here and was wondering if I was interested. And so, I was like, heck yeah, I'm interested. Number one, it's a great place. Two, I'm jobless. When you're jobless, you can't be picky. But no, it was already a place I was very interested in. And so, me and him just had conversations about, this place and what the situation looks like and what he wants to do, defensively and how he wants to run secondary. And we were on the same page and I got the job.
Yeah, you got the job, I believe, early January. So there was about a month, give or take, before signing day. And you went out and you got some pretty good defensive backs. Jalik, Curtis, Buckeye, Aaron. What do you like about that group of defensive backs that you were able to bring in?
Yeah. Well, with Jalik, I'll admit it was an alley-oop because he came with relationship to the last staff. And so all I had to do was not mess that up. And so and I'm glad he was always, from the first time I met him, he's always well put together. Super articulate, understands the game. He's a workhorse, super competitive, which is, for me, that's the number one thing I look for is how competitive a kid is. Because if he's a super competitive kid, he's going to put in all the work. He's going to put in the extra film time. He's going to take the coaching because he doesn't want to lose. He's going to do everything necessary to go win. And so that was good for me. And me and his dad hit it off when they came up here. So I just knew, when meeting his family and seeing him, I knew we were getting a steal with that one. And then with – like the guys that we got out here in Oklahoma, whether it be Aaron, Curtis, Mackay, Jamori Ray, I think a lot of the things that stood out to me was just their versatility as athletes. Coming from Texas, where I've always only recruited Texas, guys, mostly play football. They may run track. They may play basketball. And it's usually football and track, especially at the DB position. They're working their football skills, and then they're running to get better speed because they all work with trainers in the offseason, and they all play 7-on-7. So they go do their DB work all year round. They do track just to stay active and continue speed development. Out here, you have to watch, like with Aaron Hamilton, I was looking at running back film, quarterback film, basketball film, getting at track times. With Mackay, same thing. With the guys that we got out here, you're looking at more versatility. And so, Coach Doral was going to basketball games for O-linemen. You know what I mean? Like, you get some of that in Texas, but for the most part, like, they're doing shot put or something off season. You know what I mean? And so I think that was the thing that I was most excited about, is just nobody was just a football player. Everyone did so many different things. And I think that also was a good thing for me because they didn't really have a lot of time, most of them, for a lot of weight room development. And they most of them had like very short spring balls because they had to wait till the sports were done. And so, as you evaluate the film, you're looking at him and you're like, okay, so he was able to accomplish these things in these different sports. And he barely lifts weights except for the summertime when he's actually free from everything. He doesn't have, nutrition available to him all day, every day. He doesn't have just this fine tuning of his skills as a football player where he's doing that all day, every day and on weekends. And so imagine the ceiling for these kids when they get here, we're having multiple meetings to, sharpen the mental game and getting them in the weight room and challenging them in different ways that they've never been challenged. And they got freaking a phenomenal cafeteria that we have here on campus, and getting all you can eat. And if you ever go, I recommend the stir fry, for the record. Recruits, come check it out. But and so you look at those things, right? Again, when I'm in Texas, where I'm born and raised, I know if I get a kid from North Shore, right, I know it's a phenomenal program. They take weight room seriously. I know that the kids are going to be very well coached and they're going to be very tough, right? I know that from a football perspective. If they run track or do something else, cool. If not, I still know what I'm getting. Out here, I had to learn. I had to be open-minded. I had to go learn the dynamic of the football scene in Oklahoma, because I'd always heard football was good in Oklahoma, but I heard it from guys from Oklahoma. And if you're in it long enough, everybody thinks their state has the best athletes. So I was just like, okay, yeah, I'm sure Oklahoma has really good football players. But then when I get here, I'm like, I actually called two of my buddies and I was like, I have to apologize. Oklahoma has some talent. And they was like, I told you.
Now, when you, I guess, so what were some of your, I guess, preconceived notions that you had about Oklahoma high school football compared to the football in your home state of Texas?
I don't even know if I really had any, because again, everywhere I've been, we just primarily recruited Texas. Like even at TCU, we recruited the top players in Oklahoma. You know what I mean? So I never really paid attention to the recruiting scene, or what high school football looked like in Oklahoma, because we talked to the top 5 guys out of Oklahoma. You know what I mean? I watched their film and I was done. I never really had to go and watch film of Wewoka High School, and I never had to go look at all these different places. You know what I mean? And so I didn't know where Westmore was, or Moore, or Lawton, or freaking Broken Arrow, or Verdigris, or Holland Hall, or all these other. You know what I mean? It's like I didn't know anything about them. So really, I just, because they talk so much about it, I was just like, they obviously aren't that good, because you keep trying to convince me that they are. But once I actually started sitting down and watching, I was just like, there's some talent out here. And so, I mean, I just joked with them and told them there wasn't any talent out here without ever looking at it. It's just like somebody that makes a statement. It's like, have you actually looked into that? No, I'm just saying it. But no, and I think the other thing is, and Coach Doral talks about it all the time, is you get a lot of hardworking kids that do so much. I mean, we have kids that are, went to the state wrestling tournament, kids that freaking build houses in Texas, kids that go freaking hunt hogs with knives. You know what I mean? Like people that legit go fishing, like they're out there in the water, getting fit, and so it's kids that are tough. They got a country backbone to them. They've done manual labor growing up, you know what I mean? And so it's just been really tough, disciplined kids. And so I think that's been honestly one of the refreshing things, is a lot of these kids honestly are just happy to just do football. They don't have to go freaking tend to land or herd cattle or do all these different things. It's like, man, I could just do football and then go eat and then come back and do football.
And when you're watching the film, when you're looking for a defensive back prospect, what are some of the things that are kind of must-haves for you at that group?
Well, one, and I kind of hit on it earlier, one of the things I do look for is I try to gauge how competitive you are on film. And it takes – sometimes you got to watch it a few times, and you got to – sometimes I'll go and watch single games. Like I will still go watch a whole game of an athlete that we're going after and seeing how his motor is throughout an entirety of a game, and seeing what he's doing when the ball's not coming his way, and seeing what he's doing. If he's playing receiver also, how's he playing at receiver when the ball's not coming his way? And so I do try to gauge those things. I try to see how fluid a movement guys move with. Are they fluid in their hips? Do they get their feet in and out of the ground on their breaks? When they move or when they change direction, is there a burst to it, or is there kind of a lag? Like slow Wi-Fi, man. It's like it's never any good, right? You want it to be moving quick. And then guys that are just playing with a level of toughness that we want, right? Whether that be willing to go tackle somebody, knocking people backwards, guys that are manhandling receivers, guys that are, on the perimeter as a receiver and they're blocking somebody and they're, driving them downfield, seeing things like that, guys that, again, that's what football players do. Anybody can go out there, throw on the uniform, and be happy when they catch a couple balls and run hard when they know the play's called their way or when they know they're blitzing off the edge. But it's the guys that are doing it every play and every snap, and you can see them just getting to the ball. And then the other thing is just seeing guys who have instincts. You know what I mean? Like, there's guys that just find their way around the ball. If you're always around the ball in high school, you're going to be around the ball in college. Like, it's just simple. Like, it stood the test of time. You don't all of a sudden just stop getting interceptions when you get to college or stop freaking getting TFLs when you get to college. Like, that's just you as a football player. And so seeing guys that just understand the game and honestly, obviously the next part is verifying that in person when you get a chance.
And then from there, after you finished signing day, you moved on. You had spring. What did you learn this spring about the group that you inherited?
I learned that one, they love football and they love each other. Coming into it, when you look at the record of a team, when you look at the statistics of a team, you make assumptions of a team, right? And one of the things that I told my unit, and I was very transparent with them, was one of the things that I was told when I took this job is the secondary was the weakest part of our defense. And I told them that. And I didn't tell them that first meeting. I told them that after 2 or 3 meetings. And this is a little bit sidetracked, but I talked about what I expect as far as our culture and our expectation, our standards as a defensive backfield. And then about meeting 2 or 3, I told them, I was like, now, all the things are important because this is what I've been told. And so, they took it all to heart and they took it very personal. And they've worked tremendously hard. They've been super accepting of coaching. Like, they want to be coached. They're texting me at night, hey, on this play, how could I play this better? Hey, what can we call to get into a better position here? And I'm being serious when I say they love each other. Like, they spend time with each other all the time. And I've never asked them to do that. They just do it. They go out and get extra workouts together all the time. They go and, hey, y'all want to just get a little lift or go do some like stretching, maybe go do some yoga, whatever. Like, they do that as a group all the time. We have a group chat and they'll be like, hey, let's go to CC's tonight, at 6. Like, who can make it? You know what I mean? And so when you have a unit that is bought into the success of each other and that want to work hard, they're not just cool with being friends. They want to work hard and go succeed. The ceiling's high, right? Because now you got a unit that's bought in to going and accomplishing great things together. And that's one of the attributes you look for in a team in general. There's a lot of versatility in the group. Guys that can play multiple positions, that are willing to play multiple positions, guys that, have a high IQ. And honestly, there was a lot of athleticism in the backfield, which I was very pleasant to see.
And then you inherited one of the better safeties in the conference in Tommie Buckeye. What have you seen out of him this spring, maybe from a leadership standpoint? I know that was something that the previous staff had kind of touched on, wanting him to be more vocal there as a leader. What have you seen from him this past spring in that regard?
Buckeye's been good. I call him the Buck and Bronco. It just fits. He's actually the first DB, possibly even the first player I talked to when I got here. And so we sat in my office and just had a good conversation and just kind of talked about how things have been, where he thinks we need to improve as a group, and kind of, just filling me in on how things were, and honestly told me what he wanted. Not from I want you to coach me this way, but he's like, I want you to push us. We want to be coached. We want to be challenged. We want to be held accountable. You know what I mean? Things like that. And it's obviously Tom has shown me like that wasn't just him showing face to the new position coach. Like that is what he desires. You know what I mean? I never have to ask him to work hard. You know what I mean? Sometimes I have to tell him to stop trying to do too much. It's like, hey, trust your teammates to do their job. I know you want to do everything, but trust them. They need stats. They're going to get some stats too. Make sure you make your plays. But he's just always been a good vocal leader for us. He works extremely hard. He wants to learn the scheme. He's confident enough to teach other people what's going on, even guys that he's still battling for a position, because the reality is we came in with no starters, right? Like, we don't know anybody when we first come in. And so he's still helping other guys learn what's going on in the defense. And so, I mean, he's been awesome. He's been a great example, and it's been fun to help him try to grow as a leader as well and push him in different ways. It's like, you're doing these things great. Now it's time to take it to the next level. Now I need you doing these things. Like, I need, you know what I mean? Like, this is taking you to that next step. That's going to help you once you get done here. And so, again, he's been a really good football player, but he's also been great in so many different areas that don't necessarily involve the boom, ball's been snapped, go play. That's been very helpful and honestly very refreshing.
And then another guy, Jonathan Moxley, who's kind of a hybrid guy last year in the scheme. I think he's now a defensive back fully this year. What have you seen out of him in the this past spring?
Well, obviously a lot of size. He's a big, good looking kid. Super highly intelligent. Same thing, student of the game, wants to know everything that's going on within the scheme, wants to know the different variables that could happen on film. Same thing I kind of talked about with Buckeye, is sometimes he's trying to get everybody right. I'm just like, hey, I just let me coach him. You just keep doing your job, do it at a high level. So then I can say, hey, whoever else, make sure you're doing this. You see how he's fitting. You need to fit off of him, things like that. And so, I mean, he's worked really hard. The same thing. He wants to be coached. He wants to be challenged. He wants to be, pushed as a person, not just as a football player. And so same thing that I talked about with Buckeye. Like, it's been good to have him because he's not afraid to be a leader. He's not afraid to be vocal. He's not afraid to organize things. And the more guys you have like that in a healthy capacity, the better the group's going to be. Because when you have a bunch of guys that are waiting to be told things to do or waiting for you to organize everything, it can become a struggle, right? And so the fact that I have a few guys in there that are willing to go be those vocal leaders and be the example and lead, it's been good.
And another one of those guys, Kobe Stevens, when he came on, he mentioned he wanted to be more of a leader, wanted to be more vocal now that he has some experience under his belt. Have you seen that out of him this spring? And are you liking where he's headed from a progression standpoint?
Yes, I have seen it. Obviously, I don't know how he was last semester, or in the fall. So I don't have, a baseline to compare it to. That was one of the things that I talked to him about is, you're a guy that's shown to be versatile. You can play multiple positions. You're athletic. You work hard. You're strong. You look and act like a football player. And so now just trying to take those leadership skills, one of the things Coach Doral talks about is there's no such thing as leading by example. You're either leading or you're not. Leaders are the example, right? So you're not leading by example and just saying, oh, I'm a lead by example guy. No, that just means you're doing your job. That's what everybody should be doing. So leading is actually leading people. That's being vocal. That's pushing people. That's challenging people. That's doing the uncomfortable things. And so it's for him, it's about getting consistent because at the end of the day, he was still a freshman in the spring, right? He played more than some guys, but he was in high school year before. And so getting him more comfortable with really pushing guys, being vocal as far as establishing the standard of how we say we're going to operate as a unit, as a defense, as a team. But I mean, again, he's even throughout the semester, he has grown. And he's one of those guys that during the summer, he's, hitting guys up like, hey, let's go get some extra field work. Let's go do this. Let's go do this. And so I think the next progression for him is like I said, having those tougher conversations, really getting after guys when we need to. Because Kobe's a cool kid in the room. So, he just kind of sits back with his big puffy hair, just likes to, look cool. And so I told him, I was like, listen, you can be cool and still, put your foot in somebody's behind every now and then. But it's about figuring out that balance. And you want guys to be uncomfortable, but you don't want to force them to do anything. You know what I mean? And so it's trying to figure out that balance of what he's getting him out of his comfort zone, but not trying to force him to be somebody he's not been taught to be or someone he's not prepared to be, which is my job to teach him what that looks like. And so he's moving in the right direction. He ain't there yet, but he's getting in the right direction.
Now, I remember on Twitter there when you retweeted the episode, mentioned something about how he couldn't out bench press you. Now, I just has that been settled yet? Will that be settled? Because I'm really curious to see who actually is going to win that. Because I feel like Kobe's gonna, he can't not, like accept your challenge. He called the man out.
Yeah, well, first off, he learned real quickly. I'm operating on grown man strength. Like, I don't look as good as him, but you throw the weight on, it's moving. And it wasn't just bench. I can outlift him in squat and power clean too, but that's just. But we're talking about bench, so I'm gonna leave it there. He might be closer at this point because I haven't been working out his consistency and as consistently, and he works out really hard. And so, if he keeps lifting and eating the way he has been, he should be able to pass me up here pretty soon. But in the spring, when he thought he was working hard, I got in there with him and Wicks, and I said, all right, y'all think y'all lifting? We about to lift. And it was, but it was fun. It was, I think that was part of, that's something I enjoy doing because I want my guys to see that, like, hey, I'll get in there with you some. Like, I did not run with them. I will admit, I did not run. But I was like, I'll get in here with you. And, when I'm pushing them, it's like, no, put more on. And then I'm lifting it with them. You know what I mean? And so it's, one, I want them to see, that the competitive side of me, push them to challenge themselves, but also be in it with them. And I would always, and there's a few other guys I lifted with sometimes, but I would joke with them. I would say, you've arrived whenever I get in the rack with you, because that means you're strong enough to lift with me. And so it's just a little trash talk and again, just picking up the competitive juices. You got to compete and push the competitiveness. So it's been fun.
And then the final player I wanted to touch on, Trayvon Craig. Trayvon Craig's the guy. His redshirt freshman year, he was like you. He was a core special teamer, really good one. Last year, he ended up moving into a starting role, I believe, at nickel. Was really good in that role. Made plays in the run and pass game. What have you learned about Trayvon in the spring, and what do you like most about his game?
Well, one of the things that it's funny I was talking to somebody about today is he told me, because coming into it, like, I don't know any of the kids. Like, and I told him, I was like, I don't assume any of you will do anything until you show me you will. And we were doing like a little tackling drill, and it was, on like a little bag or something. I was like, hey, I really want to see you come with violence. Like, we're doing it on a bag so you can come with violence. I want to make sure that you're going to. He's like, man, you don't make that tackle. And I was like, I don't know anything about you. And he was like, Coach, I'm the most physical DB you got. And I said, all right, show me. And he showed me pretty quick. He was the most physical guy in the room. He was fearless. There was one time he took on an old lineman and knocked him backwards. I was like, all right. And so, and I think he's, because and it's funny because a lot of these guys, they hang out together, right? And he fits the mold of everybody else that I said. Like, he's very physical. He's tough. Like, he loves the game. He has a high football IQ. He has a feel for the game. He loves it. He's super competitive. And it goes back to what I said originally. He's so competitive that he's going to do everything he can to go put himself in a position to be successful, because he wants to be on the field. Just like every competitive person, they want to be on the field. And he's making sure to get extra film, and he's asking to learn other positions, and he's doing whatever we ask him to, and doing it, to his best ability, because he wants to play in the fall. And again, he's going to play a big role for us because he's just always around the ball. He's wreaking havoc. He's making tackles. He's, taking on blockers and knocking them backwards. And again, he just doesn't have any quit in him. And now that he's out of wrestling and been in the weight room a little bit more, he's put on a little bit more weight. He's put on some muscle. And so he's looking good right now. And so, again, he's just one of those guys that he pushes the room. He challenges people to be better. He refuses to lose. And so, he's just one of those guys you want in your room.
I guess my final football related question for you would be what do you need to see most out of your unit heading into fall camp?
I would still say consistency. And I told them they've made strides in the direction that we need to get in, but I wouldn't say it's who we are yet. And I think when it becomes who we are, that's when you really start to building off things. That's when you can bring in a transfer or a JC kid or a high school kid, and they see the standard that has already been set. They want that to be who we are, and they're doing everything we can to get there, and it's just taking time. We just have to be, again, consistent in doing the things that we've seen throughout the spring that have helped us be successful in practice, in the weight room, in the classroom, with nutrition, with feeling good every day, about mobility, preventing injuries. Now it's just about, is that who we are every day? Is that how we're going to carry ourselves on a day-to-day basis? Or is that just when football's actually around? Is it just in the springtime when we're getting a spring ball? Is it just when fall camp comes around? Or is that you 24/7, 365, each and every one of you? And so I think that, again, consistency is still the biggest thing for me. Is will we show up every day with the same mindset, with the same attitude, with the same intensity, and do the things that we're supposed to be doing off the field to prepare for that? One of the things that I was reading a book recently, and one of the biggest things I took from it was the value of preparation over expectation. It doesn't matter what we expect. Like, expectation gets you nothing, right? It's the level of preparation that you put in that your expectations become reality, right? And so, again, just having an understanding that we can expect all these things, and we can say we want to be this group, or I want to be this player, we want to be this defense. But if we are not preparing ourselves and putting in the work daily, then we will never get to that point. And so, again, just making sure that we're consistent in attacking the day, being the best that we can be every single day and stacking those days up.
And I know we touched on this before we started, but you just recently got back. You were with the Panthers for the Bill Walsh fellowship. What was that experience like for you, and what were some of the things that you can take away from that and now use on your defensive background?
I think, well, first, one of the biggest realizations, and I say realizations, but one of the things that just reminds me is football is football. They're getting onto their guys for the same things that we've gotten on our guys for all spring. These guys are getting paid millions of dollars. And obviously I was on the defensive side, and they're yelling at them about not running to the ball, about not communicating the coverage, about not looking over getting the call, about not playing with good leverage. You know what I mean? And so, and these are all things that we were talking to our guys about all spring. Hey, continue to communicate, get to the ball. Hey, play with good leverage. You know what I mean? Things like that. And so it's, at the end of the day, football is football. And I think it's just, they get more time, right? We get more time than high school coaches. They get even more time than us, because their job all day, every day is just football. And there's an expectation of, you're going to learn this playbook or else you're gone. Your paychecks end, right? So there's a little bit more leeway for us. But I think also just one of the things that I always try to pick up on, whether it's, doing the Walsh internship, whether it's going and sitting in with a coach at another school, is how do they teach? How do they get information across? How are they, trying to be effective, and then just talking to, or listening to the head coach there, just how they break down how they're getting across the information. You know what I mean? And he talked about the four, and I'd have to look back in my notes, but it was like the 4 different phases of football. It was like physical, mental, technical, and tactical. And they broke down what all of that looked like, and just based like this. When we're doing this, this is what we're working. When we're doing this, this is what we're working. And so just figuring out the most efficient way, the best way to teach guys in my room so that they can go compete at a high level. And just, again, trying to get them to absorb as much information and play as fast and fearless as possible. And so just picking up more better ways to teach is really the biggest thing that I've gotten from it.
Well, before I get you out of here, we do this with all the new guests, kind of get to know you type questions. So, your favorite sports team?
I got to go with the Houston Astros.
Okay. You have a favorite player on the Astros?
Right now it's Jose Altuve. He's got little man syndrome, and I love it. He's just an overachiever. He's what you call an outlier. Everything about him says he shouldn't be a pro baseball player, but he is, and he's one of the best. And so I love him.
Okay. See, your favorite hobby outside of football?
I'm a bit of a foodie, so I love going out to eat. I've recently got more into golf, and it's kind of therapeutic, but it's also challenging because I suck. And so it's fun to go out there because it's seeing the strides that I've taken over time, right? Just challenging myself. Again, I'm not good. So when I make a good hit, trying to like mentally build that muscle memory and try to figure out how to do it again multiple, like I talked about stacking those days, trying to stack a good day every day. I usually don't, but if I can continue to make improvements, I'll be happy.
And you mentioned you're a foodie. So do you have a favorite food?
So my favorite genre is Mexican. And Houston got some bomb Mexican spots. My favorite like food, if I had to pick, it'd probably be wings. I love wings.
Wings. Okay.
Bone in. If it's boneless, that is not wings. That's saucy nuggets.
Saucy nuggets. That's a new one. Saucy nuggets. Now, is there a certain way that you like your wings though, like barbecue, honey barbecue? Is there a certain sauce?
One, I like lemon pepper, but Wingstop has the best lemon pepper, and I feel like I can get it from anywhere but Wingstop, or it just disappoints me. I do like kind of like fusion flavors, so like I'll do like kind of like a little spicy Asian style, or like there's a Hot Wings, a local spot out here. Again, recruits, come check it out. It's Eddie's Barbecue. It's like a buffalo barbecue mix, and it's like you get the smoky barbecue taste with a little hint of that buffalo. It's fire.
Okay. And for tacos, are we a hard shell or soft shell?
I'm more of a soft shell guy, but every now and then I need a little bit of that crunch.
Okay.
See, I can go soft shell because I usually get chips and queso.
Okay. Well, it didn't make sense. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. Your favorite musical artist?
So it's been J. Cole for a while, and so that's what I'm gonna stick with. And it's funny is I don't even always listen to him. I just kind of like it depends on what mood I'm in because I'm really an R&B guy at my core, and so. But I got way too many R&B artists I listen to just pick a favorite. So I just go with my favorite rap artist is still J. Cole.
Okay. Now, do you have a favorite song?
I don't. I still like his earlier out his mixtapes like the Warm Up and Friday Night Lights. Like I can jam those. I still jam those all day. But I obviously I still listen to his new stuff, but I don't really have a favorite song.
Okay. Now I know you're one of your DBs, Jalik Lewis. When he came on, he mentioned he's a big R&B guy. Now have you ever chopped it up yet about R&B? Because I know he's kind of like a Mary J. Blige, that type of R&B. So like, where do you kind of fall on the R&B spectrum?
See, I think he's like a fake R&B guy. And we haven't had a debate yet. I was messing with him about it. And when he said Mary J. Blige, I was like, he probably going to say his favorite song is Real Love. And he did. And I was just like, see, that's how you know you're not a real one. If you're not talking about Lauryn Hill or Frankie Beverly and Maze or Earth, Wind, and Fire or, I was just like, man, you just talking, man. You just want to be part of the crowd. No, but we'll I'm gonna chop it up with him and see what he's talking about. We'll see. We're gonna have a little jam session one day. We're gonna put a playlist together, something just for me and him. I'm on it for real. I'm on that R&B for real.
Now you said that you grew up close to Houston, so I asked Coach Donald this question. Were you into the local, rap scene down there, the DJ Screw, Fat Pat, all of that? Were you kind of into that?
Yes. See, here's the thing. Some people say they like Houston music and they just name the ones that everybody know. I mean, if you ain't listening to Diamond and Wood by UGK, if you're not jamming all the Lil Kiki, Slim Thug, Paul Wall, Fat Pat, DJ Screw, Big Pokey, like if you're not listening to all of them, then it don't really count. Like Trey the Truth, like if you didn't get the ABN albums, then you're not really listening to Houston music. That's just Lil Flip. I'm not playing with it. I listen to all of them.
This is good. See, because I recently got into it maybe a few years ago, and there's like nobody here. I mentioned DJ Screw, I mentioned Big Pokey, and I just get blank stares. So it's good to have somebody that kind of understands that. Because to me, it's like it's a different vibe. It's like it has soul to it. It's not like hollow shell like some of the mainstream. It seems to have more
it's melodious.
Right. So do you have a favorite like Houston rapper song?
Man, that's tough. Because there's so many. I've actually started doing a playlist of just Houston rappers. Man. Diamond and Wood, still one of my favorite. You got to listen to it. If you haven't listened to that one, you got to listen to it. It's by UGK with Pimp C and Bun B. Chunk Up the Deuce has always been one of my favorites. Mostly Done is a Houston anthem. Still Tipping by Slim Thug. That's a good one. Man. It's a lot of them.
I know.
All these songs run through my head.
So many. Let's see. Okay, your favorite TV show?
Right now I'm watching Blacklist. I'm not gonna lie. I love like conspiracy theory shows, mystery shows, like because that's right up my avenue. I watch The Office on repeat. If I had to really pick one, I'd say The Office. But I've like rewatched the Bernie Mac show multiple times. I love the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. I've watched that all the way through multiple times. Yeah, if I had to pick one, I'd say The Office. And I didn't actually start liking that show until I worked in a corporate office. And then it became hilarious because I was like, I've worked with all these people.
Let's see. Okay. Do you have a pre-game routine that you normally do?
So it's funny. I've heard other people say it kind of changes everywhere you go because sometimes that pregame routine looks different based on how it's organized. So like when I was at Trinity, I used to go out and do some pregame stuff with my guys. That was just very simple. And it was something that we weren't going to work in like true pregame that we just go out early and do. And I had a ritual wearing, like we had a defensive shirt made and I would wear that out there and I just stand out on the field and just kind of like take it all in. At TCU, I was heavily involved in recruiting. So my pregame ritual is usually going out and, meeting kids and being with their family and showing them around and hanging on the sideline with them, making sure they can shake hands with some of the guys. Two of the things that I usually always do is I try to find a time where I can just kind of sit in silence by myself. Just kind of get like, the calm before the storm, kind of get my mind right. And I always like to go out on the field early on. So like even when I was at TCU, before recruits came, I'd always go and sit on the bench on the sideline with like my headphones on and just watch. And I think it's just, I don't know. It's just something, just being able to just sit there and just see, the kids kind of just getting loose, unwinding, relaxing, being on the field, throwing the ball around, and just kind of taking it all in before it's time to really get after it.
And now, during your playing days, were you one of these guys that was big on gear, or were you just a basic, just give me a helmet, some shoulder pads, and let me go out there and play?
So early on, I was big on gear. Once I got swole, I wasn't as big on gear. So like my last 2 years, I always wore leggings, but that was more so because I hated that tan on my legs. So during games, I always just taped up my wrists, and then I just had my arms out. Because again, I was pretty big at that point, so it was good for the photos. And so by the end of it, I really didn't do too much. I didn't like my visor because I couldn't breathe in it, and so I was pretty plain Jane. Just went with the clean look.
Okay. I guess my final question would be: do you have a message to those that may still be on the fence about coming to give you all a shot this year, about what they can expect if they were to come see you all play?
Yes, and it's part of it's going to sound a little cliche because we talk about it all the time. It's our standards as a team. So you're going to see a team that's selfless. You're going to see a team that's tough, and you're going to see a team that's disciplined. And as cliche as it may sound, the reality of it, when you see teams winning at a high level, those are three things that they have. They're selfless. They do their job. They play hard for each other. They put in the work, usually in the offseason, which leads to the season. They're tough. They don't give up. You know what I mean? They're from whistle to whistle. They're going as hard as they can for each other. They're getting to the ball. They're finishing blocks. They're finishing tackles. And then discipline, not beating themselves. And they're, again, doing their assignment. They're trusting each other. They're not getting dumb penalties. And they're playing a high level of football. I think it's going to be exciting to watch. I think you're going to see a group that truly, genuinely care for each other, love each other. And I think you're going to see a lot of fun football being played on the field. The guys are putting in more work from what I hear, than they have in the past. And I think there's just a new energy and new excitement. And I think you're going to see that sustained throughout the season because this is just how that group is. This is who they are. It's not a facade. They've shown it to us all the way since January. And so I don't see any reason for it to slow down by the time we get to the fall. So it'll be a fun product on the field, that's for sure.
Well, Coach, I appreciate you taking time this evening to come on and talk to me. I'm wishing you and your unit the best of luck heading into fall camp, the rest of the offseason, and really looking forward to seeing what your unit does this season. That I'm excited about the talent that you inherited, that you added. I'm really looking forward to the unit, and you're more than welcome to come back on here at any time and chop it up with me.
All right, man. I appreciate it.
No problem. Thank you, Coach.
Yes, sir.